gente já começa gravando essa primeira sessão. So, very good evening and welcome everyone. Thanks for attending our first tasting of American wines, which seems to be quite interesting to discuss the regionality, the grape varieties of United States and the very distinctive avas that they have over there. So today we have two wines, a white and a red wine. And from now on, we'll be tasting in a comparative format. So we'll be tasting two wines at a time. And the reason behind it is that we are able to compare and contrast winemaking styles, regionality, influences, and so on and so on. Okay, so who could help me with the first wine, the first white wine, which is a screw cap wine?
I could start it.
Great.
So, for me, in appearance, this wine is pale and gold. I don't think it's lemon, at least for me. In the nose, intensity medium plus, and the primary characteristics of lime, lemon, some apricot, and it resembles to me some least contact. I'm not so sure. In the palate, the wine is dry, medium plus acidity, medium alcohol, medium body, medium plus flavor intensity, characteristics of, again, lemon, lime, apricot. I'm not sure, since the acidity is, for me, is medium plus, and I think there were no malolactic conversion. And since I think at least some least contact. What else? The finish is medium finish for me. Not so long. Conclusions too, or just an assessment?
Conclusion will help as well.
For me, it's a very good wine. Even though it's in screw cap, we were able to see that. I think it's suitable for further age. Since this style of wines, it's the acidity, the alcohol, and the body, and I think it could be suitable for further age. And very good because all the for white wine, we usually search for high acidity or good acidity, and this wine has these characteristics, and the alcohol and body and flavor intensity are in equilibrium. That's why I assess this wine as very good.
Okay.
And if I can, if I can guess the grape variety, I'm not so sure. At first, the wine was not so cold, and resembled to me that it had some characteristics of Sauvignon Blanc. But since this contact is not very common in general of Sauvignon Blanc, and if I could guess something, since we are leading with USA, I'm not sure if I could say Fumé Blanc.
Yeah, but the aromatics of it is not that high, so I wouldn't go for a aromatic variety or a aromatic wine, and rather think that Fumé Blanc usually is oak aged.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is oak aged wine. So you spot really well saying. Perhaps batonnage, perhaps least contact, and then you go to Sauvignon Blanc. So if it walks like a dog, if it barks like a dog, it's a dog. So think. What's the other grape variety that has a very good affinity with lees age, batonnage, and so on? And has peach and melon characteristics.
Yeah, you can say too, Chardonnay not oak aged. So
There you go. There you go. Looks
Yeah,
like a
looks
dog,
like a
barks like a
Chardonnay.
dog, therefore is a dog. So who else can help me with this grape variety or the first wine? Or who else would like to add anything to the wine?
For me, in the nose, it has also a lot of spice pepper. It's different for a Chardonnay, but it has a peppery nose and also a lot of pepper in the mouth. And also some vegetables, some asparagus, something like that. It doesn't resemble to me Sauvignon Blanc, mas it has also.
Okay.
Someone was frozen.
Was I frozen?
No.
No. Okay.
I
Good.
did not. I did not hear Lydia very,
Okay.
very well.
Yeah, Lydia, I did not hear you.
Okay.
If you could speak
I'll try
again.
Yeah. So for me, it has some pepper in the nose and in the mouth, and also some asparagus, some vegetable in the mouth. I don't think it is a Sauvignon Blanc, but it's not a typical Chardonnay. And I agree, it hasn't. It seems for me it seems to have a little bit of wood, but not that much, and at least for sure.
Good.
Acidity, I think it's medium acidity. I don't think it's medium high.
Mm-hmm.
And has a long finish. That's something I could add with Thiago's comments.
I would say that for the alcohol and also the acidity, it's clear that it comes from New Orleans. It lasts in the mouth. Mm-hmm. I still feel the light green grass cut. I think as she said, the green grass cut it. That's it. Mm-hmm. And it for sure New World wine. It's very powerful.
What do you think about
it lasts?
What do you think about quality wise?
I think it's better than very good. I like it very much. For me, it's a very round, it's a full mouth wine. Mm-hmm. I did like a lot. It feels to me, it's the wine that makes me think at the same moment to eat something. Mm-hmm. It invites me to eat. And that's we know white wine. This is for me a good sign, very good sign. But it is really power, and the color, the brightness of the color, it's beautiful. I like it very much. I would go for not a very good one, but excellent wine.
I think on price, how much does it sell for?
I would say that is it's for a shelf price of. I would go for something around $35, or maybe over it.
Okay.
And I go lower, $15.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking about for like a specialized store, comparing to what I would have for a regular Chablis. Mm-hmm. That will be about 35, 37 US.
Okay. I think it's slightly cheaper than $35. But hey, let's get into it later on. And how about grape variety? Where you guys are at with regards to grape variety?
For me, it's a Chardonnay.
Okay. And origin? Where about in USA?
Central Valley, California.
Why Central Valley?
It's hot. No? This high in the fruit, and for me, it's a good wine. I couldn't find that acidity. For me, it's medium acidity, and the finish it's not so long for me. Medium, and the mouth not too complex as the nose.
Sure.
So I think it's a good wine, volume wine from Central Valley process.
But only Central Valley can produce this style of wine. Can only Central Valley produce it, or
In USA?
yes?
I don't know.
I mean, all regions within USA can produce simpler style of wines with some complexity. When we think of Central Valley, we think of a region that produces very easy drinking and very cheap and blended wine and high volume. I don't think that this is a very high volume wine. And I think that it's rather complex within simplicity and entry level price band, but it's quite good produced. I mean, I had on my notes and now I'm getting to the wine. I had on my notes medium intensity of lemon color, which that sort of intensity straight away leads me to either climate, like a moderated climate, batonnage, and a little bit of bottle age. Those three things can lead me. I can get that conclusion from this sort of a medium lemon color. Then I get a little bit of a medium intensity, so it's not a aromatic wine. And then I go into peach and then melon, which is in line with like a moderated climate. Peach and lemon, these are aromas that goes in line with moderated climate. Great. And then I get a little bit of a buttery and yeasty aromas, more of a yeasty than buttery, but I do get some richness on the nose, like a cream as well as. And then I get a little bit of a honey. So honey comes from bottle aging. I'm tasting the wines half blind, so I know the grape variety. I don't know where it's coming from, and I don't know the vintage. So I think that by this sort of a honey bottle aging, I think this is probably, I don't know, 2018, 2017. So that's what I have in mind. Or, depending on how long it has been on the oak. So there could be some aging. This honey could be coming from barrel aging. But however, I think I don't get much of barrel aging here. I don't think it's an expensive wine. So I think like, I don't know, 10, 15% could be coming from old. 10% of the wine or 15% of the wine could be coming from oak aging. Okay, I don't know whether it's new or second fill, second use. But that's what I have in my notes. I think the wine is dry, it's medium body, it's 13.5% alcohol, so it's medium alcohol. I think it's medium plus acidity, but that's a very good, interesting point. It's not sharp acidity, it's not, I think it's rather soft. It's rather refreshing as opposed to sharp or crunchy or crispy. So it's rather refreshing. So it's not very penetrating and not very intense, but it's medium plus. I think the intensity of the wine is like the concentration is medium to medium minus, and I think that the finish is quite medium minus. If you guys think it's medium, great. But I don't think it's that long. I don't think it has that concentration, but I think it's rather complex. So it's not concentrated, but it's complex. Okay. So I do get this sort of a yeasty, melon, peachy, and citrus peel, like a lemon peel, to the finish of the wine, and a little bit of honey too. So the finish is quite complex. It's just not that concentrated, which leads me to the quality. So I think it's rather good to very good, as opposed to very good to outstanding or good to acceptable. I think it's rather good to very good. It depends how you argue again. Because of the concentration, I think is rather good. But the complexity, you can argue that the complexity on the finish it's very good. I think the wine is in balance. I mean, it has a good acidity to support the creaminess and the richness of the wine. And I think that the wine is quite creamy and rich, the texture of it. I think it was very good made. I think it has a very good balance, acidity, flavor profile, concentration, and so on and so on. If it had more richness and more concentration, the acidity wouldn't be in balance. So I think it's well built, the wine overall. But I think it's a rather simple wine. You know, think on the layers. What do you get in terms of flavors? Peach and lemon and melon. So there are not many layers there, and the flavors and aromas that I get is rather coming from least contact as opposed to oak age. And if there is oak age, which I think there is, it's just a tiny bit, like a 10%, just to give a little bit of structure to the wine, because otherwise the wine would be rather simple. So there is some winemaking technique over here, but not much, because the wine doesn't have the structure or the layers or the freshness. You know what I mean? And that can come from many places that has some sort of a cooling influence. So we are not saying that the alcohol is high. We are not saying that the flavors are that intense, and we're not using any sort of a very tropical aromas to that wine. Therefore, I don't think it's coming from the Central Valley. I think it's coming either from, it could be coming from Sonoma, like a entry-level fruit coming from Sonoma, but Sonoma is still very expensive. It could be coming from Russian Valley, Russian River. It could be coming from all the areas within the north coast of California. That's what I think I am. I don't know where the wine's coming from. But you can argue, is the entry level of a good producer or a medium level of a simple producer, you know, that usually makes even an entry level of this, and that's like his second line of wine. I think it retails for about $15. It's a Chardonnay that retails, for me, that retails for $15. That's what I think it is. And it's rather simple than complex. So it could be sold by the glass in many bars. It could be sold in specialized shops or even specialized online shops. When we go to the second wine, and that's a very good contrast and compare, because we have the same sort of a style of fruit or quality of fruit, the same sort of a winemaking technique being applied to this wine. So let's discuss the second wine further, okay? Who can help me with the aromas and flavors of the second wine? Anyone?
Aromas and flavor from red fruits and strawberry, red cherry, and sweet dry herbs. I think this is Pinot Noir, because the intensity, the pale ruby, and intensity. I think this medium plus intensity in aromas. I think this a past oak barrel. It's just a little, and okay.
Okay, what else can we say about this wine?
Palate dry, acidity medium plus, tannins medium minus or low, alcohol medium, body medium, flavor intensity, I think medium plus, concentration medium plus, finish medium, drink now. I think it's good wine, and just a little past American oak barrel.
So you think the oak is overpowering the fruit? The oak is in excess.
Toasted already. You can feel the smoke on it.
Mm.
Yes.
So, yeah. Yeah, that is an important thing for you to analyze and to think about it. And we will discuss that in a little while. Right. Would anybody else like to share your comments, your thoughts on this wine?
And it also looks like from a cooler place. Even though I think it has too much oak, it has a good acidity, the body is not that high.
And for me, it's
right. So let's think on. Let me make my comments, and then we can talk about grape. I think if I comment on the wine, I will lead you guys straight to the wine. I don't want to do that. Okay. Can anybody else share any comment with me?
Yeah, if I can add something.
Sure.
There, for me here clearly there's wood. There, it was usually wood vessels in the winemaking of this wine. Since in the nose, firstly we have more presence. For me, it's more presence of the nose of wood than fruit in the nose, and then the finish, the palate. There's kind of sweetness that comes from the oak. So we taste some sweetness in the finish. That is one of the characteristics of wood aging.
What sort of oak was used here? Do you know?
This strong presence of wood smell and a sort of tobacco in the mouth and then in the nose leads to American.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. What else, Thiago?
I think there's a little more. I classified this wine as good. So there's a little unbalance in the finish. Something is not 100% right. So I don't know for sure that there was some correction of acidity that resembles to me that something is not quite right in the balance of the wine.
Okay. All right.
I think, excuse me, but I think for a Pinot Noir has one excess of wood, mainly the smoke from the wood, dust takes it out of balance. The wood lasts in the mouth, the aftertaste. There was a kind of vanilla taste, sweet taste. I think the wine is a little out of balance just because of the wood. I would guess, I don't know, but if there's a huge production, a large production, maybe the use of ships. Because if it is a new wine, not much old, only ships will do this presence of wood, of smoke, of toasted wood.
Very good comment, but we can discuss that as well as it's always very important that when you taste a wine, you taste like a detective. How this wine was made, why it was made the way it was made, who is buying this wine, where is he buying, how much are they paying for it, where does this grape comes from, what was the intention behind it. Once you start making those questions, once you start doing it, it becomes much easier for you to understand what's going on. So it's very, very important that you start tasting the wine in a very deductive way. So, okay, you guys do know it is a Pinot Noir, but you should be saying, why is he a Pinot Noir? So you should be saying, you know, this is medium intensity. It's a pale ruby color. Pale ruby could be a Pinot Noir. It's an indication of Pinot Noir. You know, there's use of oak, in this case, American oak, because of the coconut and the vanilla. So if you're saying it's an American oak, you should be saying, why is American oak? So you know it's American oak because there's vanilla, there's coconut, there's a little sweet spice, and sweet spice, it's a common descriptor of American oak. So you do know that, and then therefore use it on your favor. So you're proving to the examiner that you know what you're talking about, okay? So okay, so American oak, comma, and then coconut, vanilla, sweet spice. Therefore, you know what you're talking about. And then there is this red fruit, such as cherries and strawberries, on a very jammy side. So when you are in Burgundy, they don't like jammy fruit. They like really fresh and delicate fruit. So because of the jamminess, you know, it's not the best grapes that they have harvested on this region. So they're making sort of an entry-level, simpler wine, because if they were making a very good wine, they would be using a less ripe grapes, because you're coming from a moderated climate. Therefore, the grapes that you have that's slightly cooler, that's slightly less ripe, they would be using for to make a better grapes, a better wine. So if you are in a cooler climate, the riper grapes they would be using to make the best wine. You know what I mean? So depending on the climate, the ripeness, the level of ripeness of the grape they will be using for different quality levels of wines. So because strawberry and cherries are on a jammy side, I understand they are making a simpler wine, and they're using oak to add a little bit more complex to the wine. Otherwise, it would be just too simple. Okay, so you start making questions and answering questions. Then by tasting the wine, you know, for me it's dry, it's medium body, 13% alcohol, 13.5. That's what I think I am here. I don't think it's 14 at all. Medium plus acidity, but on a very soft side of it. So the first wine, the Chardonnay, I think was rather refreshing. Over here it's soft. It's not very common for Pinot Noir to be on that sort of a soft side of it. So which means that the grapes are kind of overripe. And the tannins are very low. So they didn't press hard. There was no much skin contact. It's on a low side, soft and ripe. So the you could say, you could use soft, ripe, and velvet to describe those tannins, and that's important because the ripeness and softness and the velvetness of the tannins is in line with the moderated climate and the overripe or ripe grapes that they have used. So it's important for you to connect those things. I think it's medium minus concentration. I think it's medium minus finish. And I'm talking on the flavors of the fruit, not the flavors of the oak. So sweet, jammy fruit finish. So it finished quite jammy and quite sweet in a way. Needless to say that they use the American oak is overpowering the wine. Therefore, we understand that the wine does not have the concentration, but they're using a rather perfumed oak barrels, not cheaps, I would say, oak barrels, to add some complexity. Remember, the final customer, they like it. You know, say they like this sort of sweetness. They like this vanilla and coconut aromas. They love it. So it's catering for a particular consumer that wanted to have a Pinot Noir, medium plus acidity, low tannins, pale color, red fruit. Therefore, Pinot Noir. I mean, you know, you can argue why it's a Pinot Noir. If there was a question here related to a grape variety, you should be able to say, you know, it's Pinot Noir because it does has the characteristics of Pinot Noir. And Pinot Noir has affinity to oak. And the oak that I have used is an American oak. which tells you where it's coming from. It's coming from the USA. And now you need to start thinking where within United States is coming from. What sort of ava? Is it coming from Napa Valley? Definitely not. You know, it does not have the concentration of a Napa Valley. And Napa is too hot for Pinot Noir. I think it has between 8 to 12 months of oak aging. Second fill, you know, like 30% was aged in oak, I think. I might be wrong. But the fruit was not that concentrated, so they don't need too much time, not 100% of the wine in the oak to have this sort of a high presence of American oak aromas, okay? Maybe even less than that, maybe 6 months. It depends on the percentage of the wine that has been aged on American oak. The wine for me smells quite fresh, so I think it's rather 2018 vintage or 19 vintage, okay? So it's quite, it tells me it's a young wine. It doesn't have much of a bottle aging as opposed to the first wine. But it tells me it's coming from a moderated climate, and that is related to the alcohol level, 13% and a half, moderated. And for me, the wine is it's very ambitious because of the oak. The winemaker was quite ambitious. He made a wine that people were able to be impressed. You know, he made a wine in such a way that consumers would be impressed. And in that sense, there are two compare and contrast between those two wines. What makes them very American? I think the Pinot Noir, comparing, it's a wine that has been aged for a much longer time in American oak as opposed to the first wine, okay? The winemaking here is more like I wouldn't say it's not very, very protective. It's an oxidative way, you know, because it has been aged in American oak. But they wanted to make a very fruity forward style of wine, easy pleasing, okay, easy to impress, easy to sell, that needs no explanation. So it's a simple wine in a way. It's a simple Pinot Noir, but very ambitious. So the price here should be around $20, like retails for $20, you know, to $18 to $20. But in other markets, you know, if you think of UK, you would sell for about 18 pounds or 15 pounds for a American wine that's entry level. That's medium priced, not entry level, but medium priced. Expensive wine would be 35 upwards, okay? You will find a lot of good wines retailing for $8, $15, and then it goes from $30 to $100 or even more than that. When you contrast against the first wine, it does reflect its origin. You know, it's rich, it's creamy. It does has a little bit of oak age, the way that I perceive the wine, but at least it has some lees contact, which also leads you to this sort of a nutty character, okay? And allows the wine some complexity, to have some complexity, to age well. I don't think it's a wine for aging. I think it's a wine for drinking now. But it does have some sort of an aging character, or at least bottle aging to that bottle that I'm drinking right now. But because of this sort of a creaminess, richness that I think it's coming from batonnage and lees contact, and a little bit of oak, a very tiny little bit of oak, it does say I'm coming from the United States. Okay, so it's a typical style of United States. Well, Thiago, can't you do that in Australia? Yes, you can. But usually in Australia, they try not to make a creamy, rich wine. They usually try to show the fruit as opposed to the creaminess. And sometimes in the United States, they try to make more, they try to show more of creamy and richness coming from the the way the wine was made as opposed to the fruits and where it's coming from. Both wines are coming. Go on.
You could say from Chile, for instance, like from Central Valley in Chile, not from Casablanca. It would be the same style.
Usually, Chilean wines from Central Valley, they are cheaper. And because they are cheaper, they sell cheaper. They cannot allow and spend that much time in making the wine and batonnage and a little bit of oak, because they are not going to get their money back. You know what I mean? So you're investing in something that no one is paying for it. Whereas in the United States, people will pay for it. They'll pay extra for it because there is a local demand for local wines. If you think 70 to 80% of all the wine produced in the United States is sold in the United States. Very little is exported. So that's an important thing for you to think about, for you to consider when you're thinking about United States wines, as opposed to Chilean wines. They don't have a local market to consume those wines. So that's something that you need to consider when you think about the price. And when you think about the region or the country, it's something that you need to consider price point. Okay. So American wines are more expensive than any other country because they have a local demand. You know, simple as that. Same applies to great Rieslings from Germany. They have a high demand in their local market. So for exporting their market, for a producer to export the wine, they need to export for a price that justify exporting. Otherwise, they sell locally. They drink it. They sell locally. They have a local demand for it. So we clearly have two benchmark of wines, Chardonnay and a Pinot Noir. Both wines are simple in a way, okay? They're entry level or medium priced. They're simple, but they do reflect where they're coming from. Both of them has this sort of moderation. Think on a Pinot Noir, it's not very jammy, it's not very concentrated, it's not that sweet, it does not have the tannins or the aggressive. So it's saying to you, I'm coming from a region that has this sort of influence, cool influence. And we know that we're talking about simple wines. So we need to take that in consideration when we think of where it's coming from. So let's think of Pinot Noir. Where do they grow? Where do they make Pinot Noir? There's Santa Barbara County that they do Pinot Noir. There's Los Carneros, Sonoma, and Russian River. So Los Carneros is definitely not, because it doesn't have this sort of a peppery and spicy that Los Carneros wines they produce. So could it come from Sonoma? It could come from Sonoma, but usually Sonoma wines has more freshness, more richness, more concentration. Okay, but we're talking about an entry-level wine. Could it come from Santa Barbara? It could come from Santa Barbara, but usually Santa Barbara is slightly lower. So it's usually slightly more warmer, more concentration. And what we think here, it's more of a jammy fruit. So could it come from Russian River? It could come from Russian River. Usually Russian River wines, they have more acidity, more penetrating acidity. I think this wine has more in common with Sonoma wines and Russian River wines as opposed to Los Carneros and Santa Barbara. Okay, so that's something important to consider for this wine. Why, Thiago? Because of the fruit. So I think if it was to come from Los Carneros, usually has more concentration, usually has more layers, even for simpler wines. Santa Barbara, for me, it's not that peppery, but usually has more structure. I don't get this wine with that structure. If I was to choose between Sonoma and Russian River, I would go rather for Russian River. Sonoma usually has more acidity, more penetrating acidity. even for a simple wine. So I would rather go for Russian River as opposed to Sonoma. And when I think on the first wine, usually it's a good wine. It does have a sense of place. Let's think of what sort of sense of place. We know the Napa Valley produce Chardonnay, but they usually produce more of full-on, fuller body, high alcohol than this. So that's a lighter style, perhaps, of a Napa Valley or United States. So I'll say it's definitely not Napa Valley, definitely not. Could come from Sonoma. Sonoma is a good guess for Chardonnay. I mean, good, simple wines, Chardonnay is made in Sonoma. It does have some freshness. The acidity here, it's more penetrating, more present than the Pinot Noir. So I would rather say it's more of a Sonoma style as opposed to the Napa Valley style. Could I place in Russian River? No. Would I place in Washington States? No, I don't think it has that sort of acidity to go higher up north. The northern that you go, the north that you go, the more penetrating and present is the acidity. So I don't think that the first Chardonnay is coming from Washington State at all, which in fact they do produce very good Chardonnays over there and Riesling as well as. Could I go south? I don't think it's a wine that has enough fruit and tropicalness to go rather south to Santa Barbara County or Santo Obispo or whatever. I think it's more on a coast of Sonoma than anything else. That's what I think. That's where I'm actually with those two wines. What sort of question could those two wines be if they are placed together? There should be a question related to where do they come from. So where are the regions around the globe or the countries that produce Chardonnay and Pinot Noir together? Australia, they do produce, not much, but they do produce. So if you go for Australia, you are rather in, imagine that you have a same region, okay? You're rather in Yarra Valley. Yarra Valley is a region that produces Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. But the wines are just too light to be in Australia and to be Yarra Valley. And you have one indicator here that tells you it's coming from the United States, which is the winemaking technique. A clearly use of American oak and a Pinot Noir. So they wouldn't do that in Australia, okay? Could you go for, I don't know, Chile? Yes, you could go for Chile. You could go for Casablanca. They both produce Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. But again, you have American oak here. Could you go, where else on earth do they use American oak? They use in Spain, but the regions that they use American oak, they don't usually produce Pinot Noir and Chardonnay together. And if you miss the American oak, think on the richness and creaminess that you have on a Chardonnay. These are clearly indication that is coming from United States, okay? It's quite common to find that this richness and creaminess in Chardonnay in the United States. So if there was a question here related to regionality, think on a country that clearly has a rich Chardonnay and a American oak and Pinot Noir. So these are very two indicators of regionality, where it's coming from. Another thing is, where do they have cooling influences? So Elgin, it's a region that you can have Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in South Africa. No Argentina at all. I mean, I wouldn't go for Argentina at all because of the Pinot Noir. You know, the Chardonnay could be an Argentinian style in a way, but not the Pinot Noir. Could you go for, I don't know, Oregon? Oregon, New Zealand, not at all. I mean, because of the American oak. And usually the Pinot Noirs coming from Oregon, they have more color, they have more depth, they have more tannins, and they have less sweetness to the finish of the wine. So it's important for you to taste those two wines, revisit them tomorrow, do your tasting notes tomorrow and compare your tasting notes with tonight and see what are the indicators that you're able to pick it up on a winemaking technique that leads you either to a region or to your country and to the grape variety. And you must answer the question, why is it a Pinot Noir? Why is it a Chardonnay? What are the flavors, the characteristics, the appearance, the level of intensity, the structure, the level of tannin, the level of acidity that tells you it's Pinot Noir with Chardonnay, and is it Chardonnay for cool climate, moderated climate, warm climate? What are the indicators here that can prove someone that this is Chardonnay and you know it's Chardonnay, that this is Pinot Noir and you know it's Pinot Noir? Shall we review the wines? Any questions here? No? Okay. Right. Let's review the first one. That's the time that
Thiago,
I usually embarrass myself. Go on.
Thiago, I felt first wine floral aromas, and I was confused and Sauvignon Blanc or Riesling or Chardonnay and blend with other grape, with more floral grape. I felt floral, and Chardonnay is no floral. And I think this is blend. Or is the malt I was when I degusted this first wine.
Look, I think that the Chardonnay could be blended. I think it could be. It could be.
It is a blend.
Is it? Well, I
Chardonnay
haven't opened my
with
wine yet.
Viognier. Yeah.
It is
With
21% Viognier.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I didn't select the wines. Paulo selected the wine, so I only know the grape variety and that's it. So I'm tasting I'm watching this. I'm seeing this wine now. Lost Angel. That's quite nice. Chardonnay, California, 13.5% alcohol, 17. Okay, so the honey that I got, yeah, is related to bottle aging, and the color as well as is related to bottle aging. So it says Lost Angel, California, 2017. Chardonnay Viognier. Okay, I didn't get the Viognier, to be honest, but it makes sense, the richness of the palate Viognier. But I agree, the wine was quite lifted. The aroma was quite lifted in a way. But for me, I only picked the peach and the melon and this buttery, yeasty honey and so on and so on. Let's see what we can find online on this wine. Not sure if you can find anything online.
Thiago,
Yeah.
Thiago, maybe what Ligia said as pepper on it. Now I'm looking at the back of the label and seeing that it has 20% Viognier. Maybe that's the feeling of a coriander in the mouth. The aftertaste, a little coriander, a little spice on it.
Yeah, but look, usually coriander is a sort of aroma that you get of a wine that has like 1 or 2 years. I think this is it's already developed. I mean, for me, this is a more of tertiary aromas coming from this wine. You know, the bottle aging is quite advanced on the wine. I don't know whether the wine was stored correctly, but the honey for me and this toasty and yeasty aromas, they're quite intense in a way. So the honey could be part of the Viognier as well as the honey could be. And Viognier is quite floral as opposed to spicy.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, I got the website of the producer, The Lost Angel, contact us, Meet the Angels, wines. Okay, the Chardonnay, 15, oh, they still have it. They still have it. They still have online. 2015, they still have online. Let me see what they say about this wine. Lost Angel. Go, no. I don't know how it was made. Okay, it doesn't say much about how the wine was made. Naughty wines for naughty times. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Okay. Did any of you find anything else on the wine? No? Online? Okay. In Brazil, it retails for about 160 reais, 150 reais. So, and in United States, it retails for about
$10.
$10. There you go. So I said about 15. Yeah. So $10. Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. $10. So it's a rather simple wine with very good work of I think a little bit of barrel aging and a little bit of least contact. Let me go to wine.com. Wine.com. Let me see what I can find. Wine.com. Okay, hold on. Lost Angel. Counter Chardonnay. Let me see what they have about this wine. Okay, not much. Yeah, Screw Cap, California. They don't say much about the wine. So, okay. So they only. Okay. Chardonnay planted in a cooler coastal zones takes on a bright characteristics like a lemon zest. Okay. Green apples. It looks so Sonoma Coast, Carneros, Santa Cruz Mountains. So that it's a blend of many different regions. One of the reasons why they're only saying California as opposed to any other region. So there's a blend of different different regions, different Chardonnay coming from different zones. Okay, so it's more of a Californian style of wine as opposed to a cooler climate Chardonnay, more of a premium, and that justifies the price. Okay, but we are tasting the 2017, and what I find there online is the 2018. Okay, but online.com doesn't has anything currently unavailable, but between $13 to $10. Yeah, good. Right, let's find out our second wine, which I know is a Pinot Noir. Let's see what it is. Right, that Deloach Heritage 2018, and it says California. Okay. Let me go online. Deloach. With a Pinot Noir. Okay, so it sells for $14.99. And that's the Heritage Reserve. Let me find it online. Okay, I can't find it here. Okay, what I find is 2019. What they say, the Loach Vineyards being a pioneer producer of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, in Sonoma, Russian River Valley since 1975. Okay, so the grapes are probably coming from Russian River, but it does not say anything on a family. It belongs to the WSET family of Burgundy, okay, since 2013. Okay, fine. Right, so it's a sort of entry level Pinot Noir for $15. It's quite low for Pinot Noir. Remember that Pinot Noir is a variety that has a high cost attached to the production of it.
I found it for half the price, $7.34.
$7. You kidding me?
$7. Yeah, winelibrary.com.
I think it depends where you're buying. So here is saying ship to New York.
List price says here, list price $13.
Okay. So if I get shipped to Oklahoma, it becomes 13. Let me get Texas. How much it costs in Texas? Yeah, $13. I think it depends where is it going to be sent. If I send to Wyoming, it goes to $12. But yeah, but again, the wine business means you don't want to sit on top of wine. If you have the wine in your warehouse for 6 months, you need to get rid of it and put the cash back into the bank, and then you buy something else and you sell something else. That's how it works. So you can get it perhaps cheaper, but it's an offer. It does not mean that the wine is currently always sold for that price.
In contrast to the white wine, the second bottle, the red wine, the Pinot Noir, tasting, and after taking out the cover of the label, and reading the back label, it has the fingerprint of American wine.
Yeah, it does.
When they say Burgundian, that's really American. Call it Burgundian. It's for Americans to hear.
Yeah, it's a very good way of saying, it's a great wine, it's a great American wine that can rival the great producer of Burgundy. You know what I mean? So that's the speech. That's what they like to say, and that's what they like to hear. So, and because of this oak that is very clear on the nose and the palate, it appeals for a no specialized consumer. Okay, so consumers of Grand Crus or Premier Cru from Burgundy, they would never buy this, because it's out of balance. It's far too much oak. As I said, it's very ambitious. The wine is very ambitious for the fruit. I mean, the fruit cannot hold such amount of oak. So they're trying to impress someone, and they're trying to impress unattended consumers. Okay. Right. So these are two simple wines, but really well made. At least the Chardonnay. I think the Pinot Noir is a good attempt. It does remind us of Pinot Noir, and it goes in line with the style of Pinot Noir produced in California, in a way. And it's incredible to think that this Pinot Noir has 13% alcohol, 13.5. Usually new world producers, they would produce this sort of wine with 14% and a half alcohol level. So it's quite low. And there are many ways to achieve that, as you're aware of.
You know what? But they did a good job. They have a very, very nice label with golden print on it. They have a nice speech in the back label. They have a very nice capsule on it. They have a cork. It's sort of it's how do you call when you
I think it's GM, and it's
when you have fragments and you.
Yeah, I forgot the name. Actually, it's not GM. It's Vink. It's another producer, but anyway, and the bottle itself is it's a good bottle.
It's expensive. It's heavy.
It's an expensive bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. They spend a lot on the outside.
Yeah. To convince someone to buy it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's American way to do it.
Yeah. Guys, I hope you have enjoyed. So we'll be seeing on the second week of January. I'll probably be on holidays, but I'll make sure that I'll get my samples with me so we can have fun together and taste those wines together. I hope you have enjoyed, and well, you know, Happy New Year, Happy 2021, and I hope to meet you pretty soon in January, the 20th of January for the examination, the D2 examination. And please make sure that you read the questions on the examination, make sure that you read the examiner report, make sure that you train how to structure questions and so on and so on. So you can make the best out of the examination, okay? And for those of you sitting the D1, there's 2 students or 3 students doing the D1 on that day, so best of luck as well. Cheers for all of you, and a very good 2021. You all the best.
All the best.
Cheers.
Okay.
Happy New Year for everyone.
You all.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We need
Bye.